And this is Real Estate Underground.
Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It is Ed Matthews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for joining us again today and making us a part of your day. For those of you out there who are getting value, thank you. I'm grateful for all the listeners. I'm grateful for the emails and texts. And I love the ideas and the concepts and the other guests that you are suggesting. So keep them coming. Thank you very much for that. Also, if you are new to the show and you do get value, I would be very grateful if you follow us because that helps us grow. With me is Alec McElhinny, and he is the CEO of Land Play. One of the reasons that I love having guys like Alec on the show is multifamily in a lot of markets is played out, at least for a little while. And so active investors are dry powder on the sidelines looking for other really interesting asset classes. And Alec has a really interesting and thriving company that as soon as we discovered him, we had to have him on the show. Alec, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining us. So for those folks who haven't discovered Land Play or you, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living?
Yeah, my name is Alec McElhinny. I am a flex space developer, and I build flex space, and I'm doing my first retail and medical office project as well.
Okay, cool. And so is that the project, the passion project you talked about when we were getting ready to press record?
No, it's actually a flex space development, but it's going to be on 35, and I'm going to build the biggest sign on 35. So I'm excited about that.
We'll get into that in a few minutes. But so let's talk about flex space and why it's an interesting asset class. What drew you to get into that business?
Yeah, I was doing industrial value add. That's what I was in before, and interest rates were coming up. This was a little bit after COVID, and it was a little bit harder to buy an asset and stabilize at a higher value as cap rates were coming up. Met a guy at a conference. He was building what was called flex space. I didn't know anything about it. And I just looked at the numbers and I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And the margins on it are good enough where you don't have to really worry about higher interest rates.
Okay. All right. So define flex space for me. Are we talking about, because it's not quite industrial, right? And it's not storage, right? So how does flex space fit into the marketplace?
Flex space is like a hybrid of warehouse and office space, like light industrial and office space. And just depending on what the tenant wants, we can build them out a little bit more office, but generally we stick to 10% office, 90% warehouse.
Okay.
Generally, flex space will have like smaller bays, like 2,000 to 4,000 square feet, but we can move bays around or demising walls to have bigger, smaller tenants.
And so with regard to the space itself, so when I hear office and garage or warehouse, I think contractor garages, right? So is that a classic use case?
That's great. Yeah, exactly. That's a great type of a tenant. Like when you think of like flex spaces, metal warehouses, you think of blue collar, like they're not businesses that are making a lot of money. But one of the tenants down in New Braunfels, he makes all the bingo chips in America, and he makes millions of dollars each month. And he rents out like a small little space to packages bingo chips. Even though they're like smaller type of tenants, they could be doing very well. Like plumbers and electricians and HVAC guys are doing pretty well right now.
They are. Yeah, and some of the wealthiest guys, some of the guys that have the biggest boats I know are HVAC, electricians, and plumbers. So there's that,
Yeah.
which comes in handy because I don't have a boat. I have friends with boats, so it's a lot more fun. I bring the beer and the food, and we go have fun. And I don't have to worry about the propeller that just snapped and has to get serviced. So with regard to the business model itself, so it's a straight development play. You're buying land, you're developing the building. I'm going to make you tell me all about the building. And then it's a rental, or are you selling, or is it a condo concept? How are you organizing the business itself?
Yeah, I'll pro forma worst case scenario. Like what if we can only rent it out and sell the whole building as one, but we do condoize the units. You can sell at a higher price per foot if you do sell it to a condo buyer. It could be an investor, or it can be somebody with an SBA loan, like a business who wants to have their own unit and maybe a unit next door that they rent out and further expand. So it just increases the buyer pool for it.
And so of the units that you're developing right now, are there any of them rentals, or are you building them to make them condos and sell?
I'll condoize it because it's not very expensive to condoize, but I would love to sell as condos, but I'm just performing like worst case scenario, like we can only rent it out and we'll just sell the whole thing when it's all done.
So what's your hold period on a project like your typical project?
Yeah, about 2 years, and I'll be 2 phases. The metal buildings go up pretty quick, actually. You can have them go up in about 3 to 4 months. Site works about 2 to 3 months, depending on how big your site is.
Months you're operating. Wow.
And as long as you're in a market that needs the space, you can lease it up pretty quick.
Yeah, that was one of my other questions. So how do you know if a market is ripe for this kind of building?
Yeah, and this is a little trick that I want to give to investors out there. I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, multifamily, a lot of people see what other developers are doing and hear about these mindset conferences and think that's the thing to do. You want to go straight to the source and figure out what the numbers are. So I'll go to a leasing broker and figure out what like actual vacancy is. So for example, like a office vacancy in Austin, let's say it's around 20%. I probably don't want to be building too much office, but if it's flex space and it's like 2% vacancy, that's a great vacancy. That means I can build something and I could probably lease it up a little bit quicker.
Yep. And so when you are obviously adoption and vacancy are huge metrics that are easily attained through a broker, a good broker. In terms of the size, the scope, how many units, is it just, hey, we're going to put as many units as that 5 acres is going to allow? Or is it like, what is the thought process in terms of how you're approaching these development engagements for projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a couple ways to answer that. So I think the time to maximize a site, to put as much flex space on a site, that time has passed in a lot of markets. I'm sure you could find markets where that still works, but I see a lot of that product, the vacancy starting to come up, and I see a lot of projects going up like that. So that's a product I don't want to get into.
Okay.
I'm focusing more on a niche type of flex space. Let's say I find a 5-acre site and I can put 70,000 feet on there. I'd rather put up 40,000 feet and then have a 2-3 acre outside storage lot. I'll be able to rent it out a lot quicker and get higher rents.
Okay. And so when you're looking at the additional 130,000 square feet, right, give or take in terms of that 5-acre lot, what types of space are you renting? Are you talking about RV storage? Are you talking about materials? Like, how do you approach it?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of flex space tenants actually want a little bit of yard too. So that's if you have a guy who's selling bobcats, he wants a spot to put his bobcats outside and he doesn't necessarily need to pay 15 to 18 bucks a foot to leave it inside. He'd rather pay $1.50 a foot outside. So it's people who want outside storage, and a lot of flex space tenants like electrical contractors, maybe even HVAC guys, they generally want a little spot outside the store stuff.
Yep. Okay. And so when you're looking at land, so obviously land play being the name of your company, this is all about identifying the right space, right? What's your process to identify the right space? And I'm curious from a zoning perspective, what types of lots are you looking for?
Yeah. So it starts out with what type of product do you want to build? So if I want to do flex and outdoor storage, for example, that's one of the products I like. I will first look in a county or a city that's really easy to get it approved. So for example, out here in Austin, there's a city called New Braunfels. It takes about a year and a half. Let's say you identified a piece of land and you started site plans that day. It'll take you about a year and a half before you can actually start building it. And if you go like 5 miles north up to Como County, that will take around 2 months to get site plan approved and you get similar rents. So it's like, why would you build in a really difficult municipality when you can build an easy one?
2, please.
Yeah. So first, I find areas where it's really easy to build. And then after that, find what the right zoning is. A civil engineer can be helpful for that, or an architect can be helpful for that. Municode, you can look that up online if you want to do it yourself. And then after that,
yeah, those of you out there having been through this a few times, don't do it yourself. Hire a professional.
you gotta. And then after that, is your site specifically good for it? Are there any deed restrictions? Are there any masonry requirements? Are there any proffered conditions? There's a lot of things like, and that's when developers say that they're at risk. Like that's one of the biggest risks that I find with the piece of land. These little hidden things that you don't really know about the land that might not come up in the title commitment.
We're talking deed restrictions is usually a big one, but are you talking about environmentals and things like that as well, or?
Like a phase one, I've never had an issue with phase one or environmental issues, but if you're near a gas station or near, what is it? Is it laundromat?
Yeah.
PFAS. Yeah, you want to stay away from those. I did look at a site that I wasn't interested in once that was a garbage disposal site, come to find out.
Are you looking for high traffic areas, low traffic areas? Do you not care?
Yeah, I want to do I feel like a lot of the flex space is starting to get overbuilt in the low traffic, like out in the industrial park areas. I'm targeting areas with very high traffic that should be a retail site. but might not have sewer or might something else with the land where you can't put retail on it necessarily. So it's a great retail site, but I can put the Flex outdoor storage product.
So tell me more about that. You said something about septic?
Yeah, the site in New Braunfels or in Como County that I have, that site would be perfect for retail. It would get great rents for retail, but there isn't enough sewer for the site. There's a package plant in the back for a housing development that is shared for the entire area. So I can tap into that, but I only get like a certain amount of sewer credits.
Yeah.
So that's not enough to do retail, which is a little bit more sewer heavy. I'd have to do a Flex project.
All right. And so when you're looking at retail, for instance, you're talking potentially like a restaurant or something like that's a high use.
Yeah.
I gotcha. All right. And so when you find a lot, you get the approvals. Are you having an architect design each and every one of these, or is there any sort of cookie cutter templated approach for this that makes it more efficient?
Yeah. So I'll get metal building plans actually from the metal building company. So when I order the buildings, they'll send over the plans and my architect will work that into the floor plan. And it is really helpful if you stick to one size building and just cookie cutter it. That does save a lot of money and the architect will love you for that.
Brain damage. It becomes okay. And the metal building company that you work with, local, or are they somebody that you've sourced and are national, international? You flying this stuff in or boating this stuff in from China?
Yeah, no. So I would stay away from the Chinese metal buildings, and you can find them pretty cheap. Let's say it's missing a part or a part breaks upon delivery.
Yeah.
It's gonna take for them to send that back over, and what back and forth process is a factory like reputable? Will they give you a hard time for buying a piece, or will they give it to you free? So I wouldn't get your metal building from there. There's so many things wrong that can go with the metal building. I'd get that from Cornerstone. It's a pretty well reputable company. And I have a guy, he's a subsidiary of Cornerstone. And if you order in bulk, he can generally get good prices on metal buildings.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, and give me a range, I'm not asking for the missile secrets. What's it cost to build, separate from land, just the actual construction? What's a per square foot number that is?
If you talk to a GC, they'll tell you 120 a foot. If you build it yourself or have a really good GC that does flex space, you can build it for cheaper.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad. And then, so 120 a foot. And then when you go to sell, what's the price point? Actually, let's talk about rent first, and then we can talk about selling. So what in the markets you're in, right? So I'm just curious, in the markets you're in, what are you able to rent per foot? Again,
It depends on where. Like if you're in downtown Austin, you might be able to get north of $25 a foot. And if you're out in the county I'm in, Como County, I would say flex rents are around $14 a foot if you're not on 35. If you're a half mile or a mile away from 35.
is a state route.
It's not as big as 95, but it has about half as many cars going up and down. Does 95 go up to Connecticut?
It does. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, crazy. But
Name to Florida.
yeah. But yeah, there's around 100,000, 150,000 cars going by every day. I can get up closer to 19, maybe $20 a foot for the front buildings, and the ones a little bit behind it, I'll probably get closer to $17 a foot.
Wow, that's really good. And then when you go to sell, obviously you're selling the whole building, right? So what's that look like in terms of, again, a range of what are you getting per foot, or is it per unit? I don't even know how they're priced, to be honest.
Yeah, and because I have a little bit of outside storage, it'll increase the price per building footprint, but I'll conservatively perform a $250 a foot for the flex space or for the stuff I'm selling. I think it'll be probably closer to $270 a foot.
I'm curious about the buildings themselves in terms of maintenance and all that. You're only owning it for 2 years, probably not a lot breaking. And also there's not a lot of moving parts. We're talking about maybe a bathroom, maybe a kitchenette, and a warehouse.
Yeah, it's so much easier to build in a house. Like a metal building is like a pre-assembled Lego set. When you get the package, there's instructions how to put it up, kind of like a Lego set. And it's not very hard to put up, honestly. You can find a metal erection crew pretty easily.
Do you ever thought about bringing that in-house, or is it just easier to outsource it to another company?
I feel like I could probably do it in-house, but I don't think I'm doing I would need projects going all the time. And maybe if I started a GC company where I was GCing for other people, then I would probably think about that. But I feel like you can find a lot of subs who do it for a great price, even a lot cheaper than what GCs will quote you.
And all right. Hey, so we're about 20 minutes into the conversation. Why don't we move on to the lightning round and then the final five, and then we'll land this plane. All right.
Cool.
So I'm always interested in, obviously you're doing very well. I would assume the bills are being paid and the mortgage is taken care of. If you have kids, the college is probably well on its way to being taken care of. Cars are paid off, all the good stuff. And yet you still get up and go to work on Monday morning. So what gets you out of bed? What is that thing that drives you?
I met a couple mentors right out of college who had phenomenal companies. They were making a ton of money and they were so young. They're younger guys, like in their early 30s, maybe late 30s. It was just so inspiring to see that people do that. There's a quote you're the uncontested author of your life. I really feel that if I write something down, if I say it enough, if I start moving in that direction, I can make anything happen. And I want other people to feel that. I want other people to feel like anything's possible.
Because it is. Yes. So you mentioned mentors, and I think that in order to get where you want to go, you need help, right? This is a team sport. And so I'm curious about the mentors in your life over the years. And specifically, I'm curious about the best advice you ever got and who gave it to you.
That's a great question. The best advice I ever got was bigger's not harder. It's just bigger. And I don't remember who gave that to me.
Right.
When I heard that, I'm like, that is so true. Doing a 10,000 square foot flex space development, I'm probably doing 250,000 this year. It's probably going to be easier for me to do 250,000 than that 10,000 the first time.
Like 200
square feet. So it's not harder. It's just bigger. That's all it is. I heard that entrepreneurs are really good at tricking themselves that things are easy and then they jump in and just figure it out. So it's a great quote to trick yourself to.
Bro, we'll figure it out. Really? Okay. When you've burned the boats and the water is right at your eyeballs, you tend to figure it out.
Exactly.
All right. And so I also think that thank God for mentors, but also thank God for mistakes. Fundamentally believe we learn more from our mistakes than from our successes. And so I'm curious about a decision you'd love to have back over the years. What was it and how did you think it through and how'd you recover it if you were able to?
The first investment property I bought, I think I was 23 or right out of college. I bought a duplex like right during COVID or right when COVID happened. I overpaid for it. I paid like $45K over what I probably should have paid for it.
Yeah.
I mentioned this mistake for two reasons. The first reason is you have to really know what you're doing. A lot of risk in real estate is not knowing what you're doing. If you actually know what you're doing, it could be less risky than a 9-to-5 job. The second lesson from this is it's okay to make mistakes and it's going to be fine. And especially with real estate, just hold it a little bit longer. So with this property, I just wanted to get into something. I was just so tired of sitting on my butt watching people be successful on YouTube and I wasn't. I bought it and I just had to hold it a little bit longer. And after the debt was being paid down, after prices kept going up, I still made a profit when I sold it.
Time does heal. That's for sure. And somebody once told me, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. So
yes.
And sure, you're constantly taking in information in terms of books or podcasts or however you do that. YouTube, you mentioned. So I'm curious, what is the way that you learn? Like, what are the tools that you learn? Do you read books? Do you watch YouTube? And specifically, what authors or creators are you paying attention to these days?
Yeah, I just want to encourage a lot of investors and entrepreneurs who are listening to this. I think a lot of us didn't do well in school because we were kinesthetic learners. We learned by doing. If I don't know how stormwater management works, go talk to a civil engineer. It's way better than YouTubing things. Go in person, go talk with them, and then take action on it. That is the best way to learn. When was the best time to get a multifamily? Probably 2015, and it probably wasn't very easy to find on the internet. Multifamily was something to get into. The way to know that was like actually talk to brokers and see what the demand was. For good resources, that's a great question. I think I actually really like ChatGPT, Claude, like any of the AI tools, because it might not be accurate information, but it gets you the context to know the right question to ask when you get to the place to ask those questions.
I find it gets you 80+% of the way there, right? You still got to dig deeper, but
What friend do you know who knows who's 80% right? That's great. Those are great odds.
I'm married, so I'm never 80%. That just means that my wife is very smart. The last thing I'm curious about is how you define success in your own life. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, if we all had a taste of being really successful when we were kids, when we woke up very excited about the day and that we could create anything and we could imagine anything and believe anything was real. And I believe going back to that version of yourself who's a kid who can believe anything is possible and actually make it happen, like that's what excites me.
Awesome. I love that. All right, my friend, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Congratulations on one hell of a business that you've built. When you're not talking about flex space or anything real estate related, what do you like to do for fun?
I don't really have a lot of fun outside of I guess I work out a lot. I'm getting into eating healthy, but I like what I do. And I love vision. I love mindset. I love imagining the future. I love learning about new businesses. That's what really excites me.
Awesome. So if people want to learn more about you or one of your projects, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, landplay.com, and it's landandplay.com, or on LinkedIn. If you Google Alec McElhinny or Landplay, just shoot me a message. Would love to connect with you.
Right. Alec, once again, congratulations on an awesome business. Thank you for letting me pepper you with all those geeky questions, and I look forward to seeing your business continue to explode. Congrats.
Thank you.
This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, happy investing.